Good evening. This is the City of Athens Shade Tree Commission meeting for September the 8th, 2011. I'm going to start off as usual with tree permit and right-of-way issues. Ron, I think we're getting towards the point where we have a tree planting list fairly well assembled. We're going to be able to go out and get a price on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you like to tell us any more about where we are?
Did everyone see a copy of the West 8th Street planting plan? I sent it out. I can send it to the whole group if possible. But anyway, there's 35 trees there, and those trees will be planted with money that's left over from the bike path, West 8th Street Bike Path Extension Project. So that's a good start. We want to have those in the ground by September 19th. Don't know if we'll make that, but we'll try.
September or December?
September 19th. It's connected with the project to extend the bike path, so they're obviously going to have to water and maintain them until and once they've been planted. But
Yeah, because that's pretty early. That's before the trees hit dormancy.
That's what I was thinking, but we're doing a dedication down there. We wanted to get some in the ground. Maybe we can just get a few down. But
It might be
if it's
better.
recommended by the tree commission, we should maybe hold off. That would be fine.
Well, what they usually do, trees that haven't been in pots, which is better for them not to be in pots, are usually cut out of the ground, and they like to wait to do that until the trees have become dormant, so that they've lost their leaves, and so that's usually late October, November, something like that.
That's when we typically do our fall planting later on. So.
Exactly.
did you recall the species that are being planted down there?
Yeah, we were going to plant river birch, Chinese or American elm, bald cypress, and blue spruce.
Okay. Are there any of those that would survive better if with being planted early? Or would have a better chance of surviving being planted early?
The conifers are often recommended to plant those in the spring, so I don't know whether that would be, what do you think, Emily?
I don't know about that. Are the trees we usually get balled and burlapped or in pots?
It's a mix. They're usually
Because if
in
they're
pots, though.
if they're in pots, I don't know that it would make that much difference, except they'd have to be watered. If they have to be dug and balled and burlapped, it would make a difference.
We don't get a lot of bald and burlap, but if they come from Mason Chambers, I can check with him and make sure that we get them. The elms will be potted.
But they'll be coming later, won't they?
It would seem to me that you're really dedicating the bike path, and it would be nice to have some landscaping there, but I think the risk maybe isn't worth it. I almost think that it would be better not to do that. And you might say that there's additional work to be done with landscaping, but we're waiting for an appropriate time to plant the trees or something like that.
Okay.
That would certainly be the conservative decision taken.
Do you notice any difference in performance? Have you been able to keep track at all between the potted and the burlap ball?
We have a pretty good survival rate, and most of the things that have been planted since I've been doing assisting with the fall planting have been potted. And the success rate, I think we've only lost 2 a year.
Wait, it's
3 years.
It's that girdling root thing that I was most concerned about.
But I think that the industry is going more and more that way, so
Okay.
we may find that we're not able to get very much that's balled and burlapped.
I think the key, Ron, is if they're going to be planted, the city's going to have to water them on a reliable schedule. So that needs to be borne in mind if you decide you are going to plant some. Otherwise, I think our recommendation would be try and avoid planting them until later in the fall.
And you might check with Ann Bonner about whether there's a variation in the survival rate of particular species that would be planted now or later.
Okay.
Probably something that's known.
other than those plantings, David and I met and we used the combination of last year's list that we had prepared that had a number of mid-priority and low-priority trees and bumped those to the top of the list for this year. And then David had a number of alternate sites, and I have a couple other sites as well, including the tower at Roosevelt, on Roosevelt Drive. We need to get some trees up there. And there was one other location that, out in front of City Hall, when we take the trees down that are dying out there. So I'll prepare a list like last year that has all the species that we want to plant and the locations and the priority ranking for them all. Send them to you.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll probably work with Five Springs Farm to get them, to get them.
Okay, any other right-of-way issues that we need to raise tonight? I don't think there's any. I know there's one or two permits that are circulating, but there's no decisions as far as I'm aware that we need to debate at the moment.
I can't think of any others, Dave.
Okay. In that case, let's move over to landscape ordinance issues, Hickory Street Apartments. I visited the site last weekend and circulated a summary of what I thought I was finding there. Did any other commissioners, were any others able to go to the site or look over the plans? Because it was a little bit of a tight schedule with the holiday weekend and so on. Do we have somebody here to talk us through the plans? Would you like to come up and introduce yourself? And I've got two copies of the plan up here that other commissioners can look at.
David, before Mr. Fine starts speaking, I'd like to add, he has been through the planning commission, has received his approvals there, and he scheduled it, I believe, to the city council for committee Monday evening. So the PUD part of it through planning commission has been accepted.
Okay.
And it's about ready to start city council action.
So the planning commission have approved it subject to us
With the conditions, correct.
It's then going on to city council for their review. So we're in the middle of the process.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. So if you could introduce yourself and tell us why you're here.
Okay, my name is Kevin Klein. I'm the owner of the property and developer. I've owned this property since 2008, working with the planning commission since then, kind of coming up with the ideas of what you're seeing on paper has changed a little bit from my thoughts back in 2008. It does have an existing parking lot that has been there for 30 years. It was C&E Grocery employee parking lot right behind the store. So that is staying as is, will not be any changes to that. And then the two other adjoining properties, I have removed a house and a garage apartment, and we'll be using those for the structures of the duplexes. So with that being said, I reviewed your comments made on...
Oh, good. You got a copy?
Yeah, I got a copy.
Thank
John
you.
gave a copy to me. So I guess part of it is a little surprise of how much is needed there with how many trees are on the property. I did a physical walk through my property, and there's well over 50-some trees up in the, and I look around our community and I see where, quite honestly, I did a little tour earlier this week of some of the other construction being done in our community in the university area of Stewart area and such, and I'm seeing 4 or 5 trees put in and a lot of concrete, where I'm not adding much concrete and being asked to do a lot more trees. One of my concerns with the trees are the fact that I'm doing a lot of underground utility, and I don't want to have problems with roots getting into sewers and waters and all of that kind of stuff. So, but the plan that I have proposed there, I think you suggested that I change 2 of the trees, which I don't have a problem with that. I think that would be, acceptable. I had just tried to mix it up. I did the schedule myself, trying to save a few dollars. I went to my architect and got some schedules that they've done for other people and kind of laid it out myself. and visiting some of the other properties and looking at the trees that were planted along Stewart Street, looking at the tags actually hanging from the trees to see what I needed to use. So I guess in short is I don't have a problem with changing I think it's spruce trees there at the front of the parking lot to a large shade tree. My only other concern was I didn't have in the plan the screening that I think you're suggesting needs to be done down the sides of it, and I wasn't really aware of that and really thought that, something that was already existing for 30 years, that I would need to do that.
Okay. When you make a major change like this, you have to then come into compliance with all the regulations. So that's why that buffering wouldn't have been there before. It's part of the current version of Title 37, to which many of those properties on Stewart Street didn't have to conform to. They conformed to the earlier one. So that's why you do see some differences. Some of the later stuff, the stuff that's been built in the last 2 or 3 years, should be conforming to Title 37.
Okay. Now,
the principles in Title 37 are that we separate the permeable space away from the impermeable space. For a lot like this, it actually then leads to some shade trees being planted much closer to the paved area than the old version of the ordinance did. And the way we're doing this is to try and ensure that you're getting some shade over those paved areas. We recognise you've got an awful lot of trees there. I was not about to go counting them. All I did was estimate the area.
Well, I kind of quit myself when I got to 50, so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I took a gauge with me to make sure that I wasn't just counting every little stem, so.
With a property like yours, what we do is we then look at it and say, well, if you've got more than 40% of the area covered, then the permeable part of it is obviously going to be covered. We don't need to count trees. We can state then if you go clear cutting that, you've then got to go back and plant trees.
I don't want to see that hillside move, so there's not going to be any trees removed.
Now,
in fact, there's not going to be hillside removed as well.
One of the comments I was interested in, you said the parking lot isn't being changed. That presumably then means that although the tree line on this drawing is quite a distance away from the edge of the parking lot, I went there and the trees are right up against it.
They are my trees.
And you're going to
there's a T-stake, a metal stake in the ground, and those are my trees.
Yeah. So in fact, we can then count trees at that point as part of the coverage of that parking lot, as I commented in my notes.
Right.
And so certainly that can be included.
Well, I've watched pretty closely. I know from what's required mathematically and all that, but physically going over there, I don't know what the day was like when you went over, if it was sunny or not, but a lot of the parking lot is shaded for a long time during the day because of that hillside and all the trees. But I do see a good idea to change out those spruce that I have in the front to be a shade tree, which can give some more shade during the later afternoon. So, I'm all for that. That's
the one thing that appears very early on in Title 37 as our intent is to have the paved areas shaded, because that's what we're trying to get to. And when I looked at the trees, the existing trees, those 4 trees there, we're obviously counting. The way we count those is that as large shade trees, they need to be 30 feet apart to count. And so you've got 4 on there. 2 of them not in the best of health. Hopefully they will survive, because we like you to keep mature trees if you can.
Right.
But obviously if they die, they're going to have to be replaced. And we're counting those as 3 large shade trees.
Right. One of the thoughts is also tree number 1. I know that it's a tree that's being counted, but it might be better to get it closer to the parking lot than where it is next to the building. I was looking at more of putting the trees that I put in near the 3 buildings was to make the buildings look nicer.
Yes.
But maybe it needs to be moved a little closer to the parking lot in order to gain the shade that we're looking for, and could get it farther from my underground utilities and my sidewalks that, over time, the root system cause headaches for that. So.
One of the things about the current version of Title 37 is you get to choose where to put the trees within limits. We don't describe exactly where the trees go, and so you've got more freedom than you had under the old ordinance as to where you put them. So if you decide that I don't want that tree there, I'm going to move it somewhere else, and as long as it's within 8 feet of a flat area or a single-story area or 15 to 20 feet of a multiple-story area, it counts.
Okay. And then I might likely move it closer to the parking lot so that I don't have structural problems and leaves in the gutters and things like that. I'd rather it be closer to the parking lot.
The small trees do not count unless there is a variance granted by us, and we normally do that only when there are high voltage cables overhead, and your site is clear of high voltage cables, except right at the front where, but it's across the other side of the road.
It wouldn't have any effect.
So it shouldn't affect your property. The buffering, if you and the adjacent property owners agree there's no need to buffer, but that just needs to be documented and a letter held by the code office that was agreed upon between the property owners. But that's in the
Even the buffer behind the structure to the south?
No, parking lot
Well,
to the north.
you've got there was a house there that I assume was your neighbour's house, or is that one of the houses on your property?
No, there's no structure other than the parking lot on the 3 lots.
Yeah, okay, so there's a house then on the southern edge.
Yes.
That is, and that's the one we're talking about. You'd need to get an agreement between you and the property owner that there's no need to buffer between the two. On the other side, on the north side, where the lot steps down to that other house that's on Canterbury, I think.
Right, yeah, that's understood there beside the parking lot, but I'm trying to comprehend why clear on the other end where we're not really...
You wouldn't need it on the south, because there's no parking lot there.
Well, no, but I thought the ordinance specified the need for buffering between adjacent properties, like when they're this.
Well, I guess that's where we were going to discuss if it's in the same zone, whether it's required or needed or not. Because at that point, it's just house versus house and open yard. That's the one where I've kind of been indifferent, and we've been indifferent maybe as far as whether that should be required there. Parking lot to house or whatever, I think we're in agreement that could be. But open yard space between 2 structures, just because they're 2 structures, do we really want to put a line between them or leave the open green space between them?
We can treat that as a variance, but as I say, my reading of the ordinance is that is required. But if the commissioners are agreeable, then we can say, yeah, that's it isn't required for that for the southern edge of the property.
Right. That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's where we're headed in terms of a change to this ordinance, and so I don't have any big objection. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of what I've got and trying to make it fit. So then it would only require a letter between you and the person who owns the northern side.
Okay, that's what I want. Because it seems like it would be better if we're going to grant a variance, that they get a letter that the adjacent property owner has no problem with that.
And so you don't think the people in the apartments, they're probably going to be bedrooms on the second floor? Is the apartment...
Yes, the bedrooms are on second floors on all the buildings.
Okay, so you don't think that it would be good for them to have...
Well, the buffer wouldn't go that high anyway, typically.
Okay.
I mean, they're only 6 feet at most.
Oh, because it wouldn't be a buffer of 2.
Yeah, I mean, John's right. The original sort of ideas went around properties where there were parking lots against residential areas, like there is on the northern side.
Okay, all right. I'm busy looking at where some of these trees could be shifted to get them away from some of the lines, and I think we should commend them for having a plan with underground electric. I think
a number of people are doing that, but it's certainly something that we like to see. Burying of cables, because it does improve the appearance of the landscape once you finish.
That's what I'm after for the whole site, and my challenge has been, for those of you that's been there, it's not real desirable for look out. So that's why the configuration of the property is kind of a courtyard to where the buildings can look at each other, look at their own landscaping, so that we can have it look a little nicer for the people living there.
So, in terms of having appearance, some of these shade trees could be shifted over to meet the compliance of the ordinance, and then you could put in the place of in the area where they're now marked, you could put a smaller flowering tree that would be very attractive, so that would serve the aesthetic purpose, but still have another shade tree to provide the kind of coverage that we...
Well, I would certainly invite that. I know that about 5 years ago, Mrs. Wood and I worked together on my West State Street property, and we walked it and decided where to put trees and all that. So I would certainly invite that kind of input again. I'm all for that.
Okay, so as I said, it's numbers of trees and their proximity to the paved areas that we're concerned about, not the precise locations.
Okay. And so I have in my notes then that kind of the changes from what I submitted are the 2 trees at the front would be changed to shade trees, and then the buffering that I would need to get a letter from my neighbors to gain that variance.
Yeah, and that you are going to leave the trees up against the parking lot.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Trees are not being removed.
Yeah, okay.
I want to keep the hillside where it is. I don't need structural problems.
Okay, good, good. Okay, is there any further discussion, questions?
Just one point, is all of that parking, existing parking lot, that's 10 cars, so that includes all the parking, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, so that's all paved now, and it's not going to, you're not going to have to do work in that area, so that you won't, there'll be no construction that would affect the health of those 4 trees.
Definitely not of those 4 trees on the north side of the drive going up to it. No, it would not be. But the only thing that's going to really happen with the parking lot is just need to clean it up a little bit. There are a few cracks that's got some grass growing in them. I'll have to fix that. But otherwise, the parking lot will stay as it is, and it does have curbing pretty much around it. So I guess something I had on my mind that slipped my mind now. Think of it later and ask you all, I guess.
Okay. Any other questions the tree commissioners have got? You got any observations, John, that you want to put in? Okay.
I've got it. The 2 trees in front of the parking lot to be changed to shade trees, and he needs a letter from the adjacent property owner to the north for no screening. And then I guess you're going to talk about granting a variance. Do you want the letter for the variance? Or can you grant the variance upon condition that he
Are you
brings
planning to
the letter?
contact both property owners, or are you just going to contact the one on the north and rely on us for this variance for the one on the south?
I'm looking for a variance in the one in the south.
Okay.
We'll contact the one in the north.
Okay.
I guess I just thought what my question would be then. If he's not willing to give me that letter, what would you suggest needs to be in that area? Because one of my concerns is the terrain as well as it's pretty shaded. What could be planted there?
The best thing would be short, going up to no more than 6 feet, evergreens that are deer-proof, because I suspect you've got deer around there.
Definitely do. That's
What would that be?
yeah. I live just around the corner, and I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I actually have netting around mine at home. I was wondering about things. Well, of course, it would just be annual, and that is the large ornamental grass. What about like burning bush, things like that? I'm just looking at things that would be low maintenance for me. I'm not having to trim. And
Yeah, no, that's what we try and do is come up with, I encourage people to think about things that aren't going to grow more than 6 feet, aren't going to spread out significantly,
Right.
And are
Because
fairly
the last thing I
tiny.
want is 10 years from now having to be pruning them to keep them off the parking lot to gain, keep the space of the parking lot. So because I don't have and the thing of it is, there's not a lot of room. If it does start growing, it starts encroaching on my neighbor's property there.
Yeah, well, there was actually something, when I was there, that your neighbour pointed out where the marks were.
Yes.
And in fact, the property line on the drawing isn't, in fact, the property line.
No.
So the 4 trees are within your property.
Yes.
Yeah.
He told me. I've talked to him since the weekend.
Yeah. Any suggestions on?
Well, I would like to make one comment about the burning bush. That apparently is becoming invasive in some of the wooded areas in this area. So that might not be the best choice.
Okay.
And that does tend to get wider than I think you'd want it.
Yeah.
I will check into some possibilities and get back to you if you would like.
Right. Well, let me work with my neighbor.
Yeah.
And maybe we may not have to do any of this, because one of my concerns is I don't have a lot of room there, and it would start encroaching on his property as it grows, and for me to do this is going to be some concern for him, I would think.
Well, it's always best if you can plant things that will stay within the limits
Right.
without having to do a lot of pruning.
I know he's planted some spruce of some sort along there, but see, that's my concern. There's not a lot of space down through there, maybe 3 to 4 feet, no, not even 4 feet, probably about 3 feet. And so in order to plant something, is it, root system going to do, some work on my concrete as well as encroach upon my neighbor? So I think I'll talk with my neighbor and see what we can come up with, and then if I need to, then I can contact you and we'll go from
Okay.
from there.
And John, did you think fencing would be, I don't remember the precise language in the ordinance.
It says screening or planting,
Yeah, okay, so a fence would be a possibility.
yes.
We just think of green is better because it doesn't require maintenance. That's
Well,
it. Fences
it looks better than
Yeah.
fences are, so
Yeah.
I like the plant screening better than fencing.
But one thing you might want to think about, I know I found that dwarfs are good, except that dwarfs tend to, because they're not growing, well, who knows why, but instead of growing up, what they do is they tend to spread laterally. So if you look carefully at the label, you will see that they do kind of warn you about that on the labels in terms of, so that's just something to think about.
Well, I'll work with my neighbor, see what the consensus is there. If he is acceptable to no screening in the letter, then I don't have to do fence or planting. And then if we do, then we'll look at, which measure we do need to take there.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, anything else? So are there any objections to us approving this one then? I don't think there are. Okay, it's approved.
With the variance
With the variance, yeah,
on the south side.
on the south side.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Agenda. Any other landscape?
Yeah, if I may. I'm sure you guys are aware that we're going through some issues at 10 and 11 Graham Avenue. That project has come through here before, and I would just like some clarification. I received some emails from David this week that you guys did meet on that particular Saturday morning with the owners from Integrated Services and with their architects, and that they did come back with a revised plan in October meeting that I don't believe I was at, so therefore I wasn't aware, and David found evidence that you guys did accept the final revised plan at the October 2010 Shade Tree Commission meeting. So I just I believe that's why Mr. Dill's here, maybe just to hear that verification that you guys did indeed finalize that, and I will get with Mr. Valentor to get a copy of that for myself, because I had not been able to put my fingers on it, so, of what that final plan was. All I have is your notes.
Yeah, and I checked in my records. I don't have a copy of it.
Okay. Well, as I said, I don't believe I was at that October meeting, so it may not have ever gotten to me, and they may still have it. And if that's the case, I'll get it from them. But I just wanted you guys to maybe confirm for me right now that you did indeed finalize that plan in October of 2010.
That's what the minutes show.
Okay.
That must be accurate.
So that's the only other issue I have.
Okay, does that satisfy you? Yeah, come forward. If you've got a comment to make, we can put in the record, just name and address and then what you're
Yeah,
here
I'm
for.
Jeff Dill, I live at 31 Grand Drive. So I guess I didn't quite understand what Mr. Paskey said. Did he say you met at the site?
No, after the July meeting, three of us, I think, met at RBC's offices and discussed the details of the plantings that we felt would bring the site into compliance with Title 37.
10 Grand Drive.
Yes, I believe that is the address.
And has this body formally approved that at a meeting or?
Yes, we formally did that at the October meeting in that year.
Can I get a copy of that approval would be my first question.
You can have a copy of what I've given John, yes.
Okay.
But as you heard, I don't have a copy of the plan, and it appears that the final copy didn't get to the code office. And so we're going to have to ask RVC for a copy of that plan.
Okay, have you actually been to the site?
I certainly went to the site. Several of us did prior to the July meeting.
There's an existing parking lot that first of all has parking in the front. It has 3 parking spaces in the front setback, goes all the way to the street with no sidewalks. And it abuts a stark bare wood fence that's right on the property line. And this previous discussion was very enlightening about screening between properties. This is a business zone, and it abuts a residential zone, and there's nothing but a bare fence there, and there's no room for any plantings to provide the kind of screening you were just talking about. And I would further refer you to the comprehensive plan, which calls out that kind of screening in a number of places, specifically for this neighborhood. So I would ask you to take that into consideration. It's my contention that a revised site plan has to come before this group based on changes that have occurred and other things that have been done by the Planning Commission.
Very likely.
And when that happens, I would urge you to consider those things. And if it doesn't happen, that would be very curious.
Well, as we discussed, the fence alone is an acceptable screening between parking and the residential zone to the north.
It certainly doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan.
Well, Title 37 does its best to convey what the comprehensive plan had as its ideals. I would say that every time somebody makes a major change to a plan, it has to be brought back here. The only proviso is that, as you heard in that previous case, when we've said this is how many trees are required on this site, we don't object to where they're planted. Now, when it comes to buffering, if we've said, yes, you've got to have buffering, and if you don't want to have buffering, then you've got to get the agreement of the immediate neighbour. And that's the way it works. So I'm trying to think of what might change the plans to that site, as long as they don't change it so that they can't plant the number of trees that we've requested.
You talk about shading on the parking area. There's a parking area there, and the existing plan has no shade trees anywhere near that parking area.
Is this on the... Because if I remember rightly, this site is split by Graham Drive into 2 parts.
There was some planting on the north side along that property, along the fence line, that you guys didn't count because technically they weren't large shade trees, or you said they were too close or something to that effect. And to the rear, to the to the west side, there's overhead power lines, so that limited what could happen.
The other issue was that I know that when we visited it, there was the original house on the property. So we haven't seen it since that.
I would urge you to drive by and take a look at it.
So we're working off the plan that RVC had. And if that plan is significantly changed, then it's likely it's going to come back to us for approval. But if it hasn't significantly changed, then it won't come back, and whatever's in the plan is the plan.
Okay. I'll move on.
Yeah.
I'd also like to call your attention to 11 Graham Drive, which is the business across the street. There's been a parking space added to that beyond the original site plan, and it's in the setback right next to the residence on the north side, and there was a curb cut. And my understanding is that whenever an additional curb cut is made, a new approval has to be done, and it should have come before this group to approve that curb cut.
No, it depends on the extent of the change as to whether it comes to us or not. And I don't remember the percentages, but if you look under Title 37, you can see there what would trigger that, and I don't think that's big enough to trigger it.
It did not trigger it.
All right, hold on. It says right here in 41.10.B1E that it requires reapproval if it encroaches in a setback area or designated recreation open space areas and the location and number of curb cuts remains unchanged. So if the location and number of curb cuts changes, it needs a new approval.
Okay, but that's Title 41.
That's Title 41.
And Title 41 is what the code director has to invoke. And then as part of that, he would then invoke the tree commission as to looking at things and so on. If he hasn't invoked it, we wouldn't be involved.
All right, my contention would be that he should have invoked it.
Okay, I understand.
But thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your interest in all this. Are there any other matters for landscape ordinance? Okay.
That is all I have.
Okay, good. Ron's report. We've already heard most of it, I think. Have you got anything else?
I do have a little bit more. Our tree contractor is back in the game and catching up with some work that we had outstanding. So that's good. We should have a number of things going on that you may notice. Any questions that you see going on around the city and have questions, just give me a call. I have a list of everything that's ongoing, and if you see something, call me. It might not be on the list. I can check it out, or just let you know that it's on the list. It's scheduled for removal or pruning or whatever. Also, AEP, they're wrapping up their work in Nelsonville with ASP Fund and clearing a major power line, a major circuit up there that was damaged by storms, and they'll be able to come down to the city probably within the next couple of weeks. They have been in communication with me as just a communication effort based on some of the revisions that we were doing with the franchise renewal. And I would like to meet with members of the Shade Tree Commission on sites where they intend to do work so that we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Is that possible?
It's possible.
Just send
Depends on-
emails out, maybe do weekend tours or lunch tours or something
I
like
think we're going to have to
that.
try and divvy the work up amongst ourselves, though, because
Okay.
I'm not going to be able to do all of them.
Their first circuit that they're going to clear in the city is actually on Lorraine, between Lorraine and Hudson, behind Meadow Lane Apartments. Significant circuit they're upgrading. There's a number of trees that are right in the middle of all of it. A group of residents on Lorraine are having frequent brownouts, so they're wanting to do some work there.
Yeah, we can look at that, certainly. Where are we with the agreement? Have council seen it and approved it, or?
No, we'll be discussing it Monday,
Okay.
and,
Will that be the third reading, or?
no, we haven't had our first reading.
Oh, this will be the first reading?
This is continued discussion of a draft
Okay,
before it goes for the first reading.
okay.
In the meantime, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elahu or John, I think, we're operating under the existing,
That's right.
even though it's expired. It's extended
Yeah.
until we get the new one.
Yeah, which is agreeable.
That's all I have.
Okay. I haven't done anything more with the Emerald Explorer data. We have, so many trees, so many dollars. One of the things that'll come out of this is, can the city afford to remove all those trees in a 3 to 5 year period? And that, I think, is going to be the bottom line in the report. I haven't heard of any further encroachment into this area within the last month or so, so I think things must be stable at the moment, or creeping very slowly towards us. Which is good.
A lot of focus on the Asian longhorn beetle right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll change number 4 to invasive or pest discussion.
I had a comment on the AEP trimming.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it was 6 months ago or more when they had first marked all the trees in certain circuits here in town, before they were drawn into Nelsonville. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right, yeah.
So I wonder if they need to remark, I mean, this isn't your business really, but just curious if they need to remark those, or if they plan to contact the property owners again to remind them that, hey, we're coming to trim now. Because after that amount of time without letting the property owners know when they're actually going to do it, I think that would
Good point, absolutely.
That'd be a good
That should
way
be
for them to go
something
about it, yeah.
I communicate with them.
Okay.
And part of our communications that we had is that I will work with them and prepare media releases so that people are aware of what's going on.
Excellent.
I had a question for you about what the city does in terms of just keeping the street trees tidy. We had a program a few years ago where you were moving through different areas of the city. Are we keeping that up, or has that fallen by the wayside? Or?
It's not fallen on the wayside. It's not as, since I left the street department, and I kind of operate it through a work order program called iWork. So it's still there, but it's not as focused as it was during those couple years. It's somewhere I'd like to get back to.
Yeah, because we have young trees that could really do with a little bit of lifting to get them off people's faces when they're walking on the sidewalk and so on. It's the thing that I think people object to. Anything else, Ron?
I had a question about tree trimmers coming in. What are the requirements for them working in Athens? Or is it just tree trimmers that are working on city trees that have requirements? There was supposed to register with the city, or was that something that is in the works but not required yet?
All landscape contractors should be registered with the code office. I know there's some that are not, and usually we get people who will call us and say so-and-so working somewhere, and we'll try to run them down and say they need to be registered with us. But, we do best we can, and we have quite a few. Our contractor registration program now is in the second year, and we're getting, and this includes all contractors, but we're getting close to 400 contractors a year that are registering with the city.
Okay.
And then it does include landscape contractors and/or tree trimming contractors, so.
And if they are already certified arborist, is this pretty simple process if they...
As far as getting, we don't check, see if they're certified arborists.
Oh, okay.
All we're doing is doing for registration to verify they have liability insurance and are paying city income taxes, and a way for us to track them down, hopefully if somebody unfortunately paid them in advance and then didn't do the work. That's the intent of it.
So this really has nothing to do with the quality of the work or preserving the trees from...
No, the only thing we're trying to do is make sure that any contractors employed to prune or remove trees in the public right-of-way are ISA certified.
Oh, okay, all right.
So that is the real distinction.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Under other, I've got a request from the Service Safety Director. She has noted that the property at Palmer Place has got a rather beautiful landscape now around it, and she would like us to publicly recognise this. I think that's something we can certainly point to as a very good example of a landscape design that is certainly enhancing that neighbourhood. It seems also to be a well-maintained one, which is clearly important when we're coming to doing landscaping on that scale, but it is maintained professionally. It's certainly, as I said, an improvement to the neighbourhood, and blends well with that whole area. And so I think certainly Mr. Cornwall is to be commended for his efforts to improve that area. So if there's no objection, I think we should note that in our minutes, and I'll get Ron to tidy up the words and so on that we've got there. But I think we can certainly commend Mr. Cornwall for his efforts and the care that he and his employees have taken in maintaining the plantings.
I second that.
Okay. So, any objection to that being a noted thanks to Mr. Cornwall? Okay, good. Let us record that in the minutes then. Is there any other matter that the Commissioner wishes to raise?
I have one.
Yep.
Just a landowner on South Shannon and East State Street, right at the corner. He has a couple of trees in the right-of-way that appear sick. I guess the city put them in there. I think the city put them in there. Might have. I mentioned bring it up if you can go by, but I guess they planted trees there before and they all get sick again. So
What's the intersection?
South Shannon and East State Street.
Yeah, I think I know the one, and yes, there have been repeated plantings there. And
So he was asking me about it, like there could be something below ground. He's been having problems there, but maybe the species that we've been planting there just,
yeah, could be.
I can't remember. I've been trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Do we know the history of which, like, did they try different kinds of trees, or did they keep trying to grow maples? Or
My memory is that they're ornamental, small ornamental trees, aren't
Yes.
they, that are going in there?
Yes.
Because there's high voltage cables, I think, over,
Yes.
close to that site.
They're all what kind of trees?
Small trees, ornamental
Oh, okay.
trees, and that may explain it, because they are very vulnerable, these smaller trees.
But there's one of those pear trees next to it. That seems to be doing fine.
Yeah, they do well.
But, yeah. Whether or not it's a disease or something's going on there, I figure I'll just bring it up.
Do you know what species they are?
I've been trying to remember that. It was dim that night, and I don't get on that side. It's my neighbor. But I don't go that road, and I'm trying to remember what it is.
Yeah, I have a memory of a dogwood dying there, and again, it's a very open site, and so that would not be a species that we would
So-
recommend.
And the dogwood
planting.
is very susceptible
Yeah.
to anthracnose.
Anyway, it's something to look at, and maybe get Anne to consult with and see what she suggests. I mean, that's a site I would have thought a small evergreen would be better, if it's because it's one where you would like to get, presumably the owner would like some screening from the
Yes.
street and so
Yeah.
on, and it's a site where you can only really plant small trees, and so evergreen of some sort would be possibly the
You know, there's
best.
some screening because of the firehouse. I mean, there's not much there, but
Yeah.
kids in the morning hang out there.
Yeah, that's the corner, Ron, where that is it Richland Township store a fire engine?
One of the old fire engines.
Yeah.
The old ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else that we need to bring up? John, have you got anything?
No.
Okay, good. In that case, all we've got left is the minutes of our last meeting that were prepared by Ron. I haven't actually had a chance to read them myself yet, but you can just look over them and then we'll see if we can approve them. Correction?
No, it just reminded me of something.
Okay.
Okay.
In reference to changes to Title 37, when Aldi gets back, we'll try and get together to see if we can draft some language for that, and also for the policies.
Be very helpful.
She is travelling at the moment. She'll be back soon.
Item 1C, double I, appears to be the word "way" left out between "of" and "trees."
Yep. Must be on work on
Yes.
right-of-way trees, yes. Yep. Well spotted.
Hold on, John. Where you at? C-O-I?
Yeah, C, under number 1C, the policy of who can, go down to double I, or two there, and it's at the end of that sentence. Must be ISA certified to perform work on right-of-way trees.
Thank you.
Otherwise known as ROW, or ROW.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any objection to approving our minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, we have approved minutes. Our next meeting is due to be October 13th, according to my note here. And with that, we are adjourned.